as a way to break up non-stop reading of Arthurian legend, and also because on really hot days my computer does not work, so I have to do something else, and this gave me something to do when I wasn't working on videos. I read multiple other stories in preparation for future mythological rankings. Those are the stories of Siegfried/Sigurd of the Nibelungenlied and Volsunga saga, Rostam of the Shahnameh, and Beowulf of the Epic of Beowulf. So I took to YouTube and asked people what they wanted to see first, because I'm doing a video on all of them, but this poll kind of will determine the order. As you can see, Beowulf won out by a very, very large margin, so here we go. Beowulf is the main protagonist of one of the most important epics ever written. Just as influential as the stories of Heracles, King Arthur, and Gilgamesh, the Epic of Beowulf. Generally considered the oldest piece of Old English literature, this story takes place in a weird world where Christianity and Nordic religions coexist, meaning God and Odin are just sort of in the same world. We have to accept that. Before I explain the story, let me just say that I apologize for the pronunciation you're about to witness, because some of these are definitely going to be pronounced wrong. In the story, Beowulf is the hero of the Geats, an old northern Germanic tribe who inhabited modern-day southern Sweden, and also were known as the Goths. Beowulf comes to the land of the Danes, another northern Germanic tribe, to aid King Hrothgar. He learns that the mead hall Heorot has been under attack from a monster by the name of Grendel. Beowulf decides, fuck it, I'll take him on, and I'll do it without any weapons as well, and proceeds to fuck him up. After being celebrated, he gets into conflict against two more creatures over the course of the story, setting the tale up in a simple 3-act structure depending on the main antagonist. Prior to facing the second monster, Beowulf also talks about other events such as his race with Breca, and receives many gifts. His second enemy is the vengeful mother of Grendel, who comes seeking vengeance for the death of her son. Beowulf kills her. After returning from his feats, Beowulf eventually ascends the throne to become the warrior king of Geatland. For 50 years does he reign until his people are brought under attack from a fire-breathing dragon. With sword in hand, Beowulf faces the dragon and kills it, but is mortally wounded and dies after. With his final words, he is comforted by the sight of the dragon's riches as he dies, and is burnt in a funeral pyre per his last request. Beowulf's story is one that is echoed throughout history and bears similarities to a lot of others. The story of Beowulf is believed to have changed a lot over time, and the manuscripts we have are believed to have been heavily edited, but we can't really know what the oldest stories of Beowulf said of him. The story survives in a single copy in a manuscript known as the Noble Codex, which was damaged by fire in 1731. When I say it is known as the Epic of Beowulf, I should clarify. The name of the story is not actually known, it isn't named in the manuscript, so people tend to refer to it as either the Epic of Beowulf or simply Beowulf, either one works. When it comes to the story as well, we don't know when it necessarily takes place, but it's believed to be a story from and in the 6th century, roughly. Regardless, now let's talk about the main hero, Beowulf. Beowulf is portrayed as a massive muscular beefcake. Many remark on how he looks, as someone who is just strong as fuck, incredibly well built and very powerful looking. We don't know many more details about him, but that's what he is, a big bulky boy. He wears chainmail armor, iron armor, and an iron helmet. His helmet is also noted as incredibly well made and basically immune to swords, and his armor is the former armor of King Hrothgar. Alongside that, he possesses a shield, which later gets upgraded from wood into iron to better handle the fire of the dragon. He also has some other random things like a golden standard and 8 horses saddled with jewels and gold plating. But he is not a man who is focused on his defense, he is a beast of a fighter. When he first arrives, he's seen wielding a sword and a lance, as well as what is said to be a chainsword. He also possesses a bow and arrow, which he used to one-shot a sea beast, which might have been a dragon. But Beowulf is primarily known for 3 special swords he possesses, though only one is actually known for having worked. He wields Hrunting, a falchion cast in iron and blotted with poison that seems to possess the supernatural ability to never fail. It is also adorned in jewels. However, when Beowulf wields it, it fails immediately. To be fair, it is stated this is the first time it ever failed, but it did, and it was unable to harm Grendel's mum. He also has Naegling, that might not even be close to how it's pronounced, a sword that is an ancient blade that is never blunted in all its years of usage. The sword fails to do anything to the dragon. That's its role, okay, not looking great. Well, Beowulf also has a giant sword, an ancient blade he found in the home of Grendel's mother, which is a blade larger than a man, wielded by giants. It's bigger than Beowulf himself, and was used to one-shot Grendel's mum. And then he also used it to decapitate Grendel's corpse too. It is the only blade ever shown to work on either of them, though he does end up losing it. You see, after he kills them both, the blood of the two is able to melt the blade like ice. However, for Versus reason, just let him have it anyway, because Beowulf walking around with a sword bigger than himself, that's cool as shit. You might be wondering though, if all these things fail to work, how does he get anything done? Well, you see, Beowulf is extremely strong. Stupidly strong. He doesn't need a sword. At the time of this tale, Beowulf is stated to be the strongest hero that exists in the time period. Now, it's hard to know what other heroes exist at that point in time, because while Sigurd is mentioned, he is mentioned as a hero of the past. But Beowulf is directly stated to possess the strength of 30 men, and is stronger than anyone Grendel has ever encountered. In his battle with Grendel, he certainly was able to match him. Grendel is a giant creature and a descendant of Cain from the Bible, the man who committed the first murder. I think he's able to shatter Beowulf's shield, but I'm not sure, and he's able to rip a door off its hinges. He's basically immune to swords when they're used against him, and is so large that his decapitated head requires 4 men to carry it. During their wrestle, Beowulf and Grendel were shaking the entire wine hall they were in, and it was on the verge of crashing down, with it being stated that nobody thought the wine hall could be broken. And not only did Beowulf wrestle against that guy, but he got the advantage and tore his arm clean off his body with his bare hands. Later on in the story, it is stated that Beowulf was once able to swim through water with 30 sets of armor in one arm, which could have weighed up to 600 kilograms, and he was swimming with that. Off center. And that isn't the only swimming feat that Beowulf has. Early in the story, we hear the tale of his race with Breca, in the seas which occurs in the seas. Now, it's not actually clear whether this was a race in boats or a swimming race as it isn't specified, but I agree with the side that says it was a swimming race. In this race, Beowulf is said to lose, but he admits that he was holding back because he and Breca weren't competing, but rather it was a friendly competition where they were going together. It's explicitly stated that Breca couldn't swim past Beowulf, while Beowulf wouldn't swim past Breca. Now, Beowulf ends up being separated from him, and he arrives at his destination within 5 to 6 days. Beowulf, however, arrives in 7. What happened was that after the first 5 days, Beowulf was sent off course by the waves, and engages in the battle with a sea beast and kills it. And then he kills 9 more after that. Not his only time killing large groups of monsters, having also killed the Knickers, which just sounds like a race of underwear. And I have no idea what they are, honestly, but they're either giants or dragons. But let's get back to that feat. Beowulf had to hold back for Breca to keep up. When Beowulf arrives, it says he arrives in Finland, and scholars seem to accept that Breca and his people lived on the island of Brno. To swim that distance in 5 days, Breca would have been swimming at around 2.1 meters per second, which isn't actually that superhuman. Tom Jager accomplished a higher speed of 2.29 meters per second over the course of 50 meters in 21.81 seconds. However, that was keeping up the speed for roughly 22 seconds. Breca was swimming at that constant speed without any pause for 5 whole days, and Beowulf was even faster. There's no doubt that Beowulf is much faster than a peak human, though the extent to which isn't really clear. He also swam through waters full of the blood of Grendel and his mother. That blood was able to melt the giant's sword as if it was ice. The blood is stated to be extremely hot, and that heat is connected to the melting in some way. The sword is believed to have been made of Damascus steel, and steel has a melting point of 1205 to 1370 degrees Celsius, and Beowulf was able to swim through probably higher temperatures than that because the sword melted away almost instantly. And that's how fast and strong he was in the past. While you'd assume 50 years would have made him Beowulf weaker, it's not ever really specified, at least not anywhere I saw. In fact, Beowulf seems to have gotten stronger, having fought against a whole-ass dragon who was immune to most of his weapons, though his dagger was able to carve it. Now, Beowulf could not defeat this dragon alone. He did have help from Wiglaf, but he was able to match it in power to some extent. This dragon was able to burn down a manor with relative ease and just wipes out a city by destroying all the buildings. So it's not city level, but it's almost certainly building level. I think it's very fair to say that Beowulf's full power is roughly building level. So strong in fact that he cannot use any weapon because it's stated he's too strong for the weapons he wields, and that any he's ever had have broken. I guess if you want to bullshit it, you could argue that that would apply to Mjolnir if you want to extrapolate and he scales to Thor, but no, that's rubbish. I just thought of that on the spot now, and that's really dumb. And really, that's your lot. That's Beowulf. Yeah, he certainly doesn't have the god-scaling elements of Gilgamesh, nor the supernatural heroism tales of Arthur. Being from only one story, he's pretty simple. He's a man who is most likely at building level and faster than peak human, wielding iron armor, an iron shield, a poisoned sword, a sword that does not blunt, and a sword bigger than himself. That's Beowulf, an absolute badass and a mega Chad who is awesome, and I love him. That's all I have for you. I'll see you next time. Bye. We're looking at Siegfried next.